If you're an aspiring entrepreneur who wants to escape the corporate rat race by starting your own business, but you're not quite sure how to get started on the legal, banking, and admin front, then you're in the right place. I've been helping people start and grow businesses for over a decade now, and this is definitely a common hurdle for people. So let's take care of it. What we're going to cover is how to pick a legal entity, selecting a business address, setting up your business bank accounts, designing business cards, creating a logo, uh, website, taxes, all these types of things. Not the most exciting topics, but very important, obviously. Now, this is one of the many trainings that my former clients got access to when they hired me for thousands of dollars, and you're going to get access to it for free here on YouTube. This episode is part of season 2 of my YouTube channel, and season 2 is all about launching the business and making that first sale. And the next episode is going to be the last one of the season, which is all about how to make that first dollar. So, as always, please leave comments below if you find this helpful. I love hearing about your success and your progress and your breakthroughs. And for now, let's dive into all the details about how to set up that business so you can achieve your goals. Welcome to starting your legal business entity. Very exciting. So during this training, you're going to discover the steps for setting up your legal entity, low value activities of first-time entrepreneurs, bank accounts and credit, taking payments, because that's what you want. Why you want to make money. So how do you actually do that? How can your customers and clients actually pay you? And we'll cover a little bit about taxes. But first, let me read this disclaimer. This video is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. Although we have done thorough research to ensure the accuracy and completeness of the information contained in this video, we assume no responsibility for errors, inaccuracies, omissions, or any inconsistency herein. This video is not intended to provide personalized legal, accounting, financial, or investment advice. Viewers are encouraged to seek the counsel of competent professionals with regard to such matters, including but not limited to lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors. We specifically disclaim any liability, loss, or risk which is incurred as a consequence, directly or indirectly, of the use and application of any of the contents of this work. Then in more layman's terms, this is meant to give a generic overview of the topics and does not include every relevant and important detail. Perform your own research and speak with professionals. Okay, so let's dive in here, starting your company. A lot of people think that when they need help starting a business, that they need help with how do you actually legally start it? You know, what should you do an LLC? What kind of paperwork do you need to file? How do you get a bank account? What's an EIN? And they're so overwhelmed with this process that that's what they think they need the most help with. Well, actually, the easiest part of this whole process is this stuff. And I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's definitely easier than making your first 6 figures. The hardest thing to do is to generate a profit, is to get someone to open their wallet and give you money. That's the hard part. That's where I want you focusing your attention, not on all this stuff that we're about to cover today. This stuff should be just get it done as quickly as possible, get it out of your mind, move on. That's what this stuff is. And I'm going to break it down to make it really kind of simple step-by-step formula for you so that you can stop worrying about it and move on to the important stuff, because all the stuff we're covering today is not the important stuff. The important stuff is how are you going to make money in your business? How are you going to generate a profit? What's your marketing strategy? How are your sales skills? What's the product or service you're going to offer? How are you going to scale? That's the important stuff. But this stuff is important as well, because otherwise, if you don't know this, then you can't really start an official business. But let's keep it in context. This is the least of your worries. So let's dive in. Here are the steps. You need a name for your company. You need to determine the state of incorporation, meaning, New York or Delaware or Nebraska or Texas or, which state. You need to get a business address. You need to determine the legal structure. I'm going to recommend that there are no recommendations here. I'm going to suggest you look into LegalZoom. And the reason I say that is because I am not qualified to give legal or accounting advice. I am not an accountant. I don't have a CPA. I am not a lawyer. I have not gone to law school. So everything here is for your consideration. I'm not making any advice at all in this entire thing. I encourage you to go speak with, as I said in the beginning, a lawyer, an accountant, a financial advisor if relevant, whatever, etc. Okay. You need to pick a registered agent. You need to get an employer identification number. You need to get a business bank account. And then you have to create some accounts to actually be able to accept money from people. All right. Step one, pick a legal name. So you need to come up with a name for your business. And there's lots of ways that you can do that. There's plenty of blog posts online, such as just go to Google and type in how to come up with a name for my business. And there's lots of generic advice out there. And, a lot of it's good. Uh, so, but here are some considerations that might not be so obvious. First, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself. Like if you call yourself the Denver Millennial Career Coaching LLC, um, what happens when you want to move out of Denver or you want to create a national audience? Or what happens if you don't want to work with millennials anymore? You want to work with boomers? What if you don't want to do career coaching and you want to move into business consulting? Well, you've kind of pigeonholed yourself because you called your company that. So you don't want to pigeonhole yourself. Don't make it too specific. Um, Now, you want to be specific about your target market, which I talk about all the time. You just don't want to make your business name specific because over time you may want to change your target market, et cetera. So it's important to have a narrow target market in your business plan, but not in your business name, because the business name is going to be with you for hopefully decades to come, and that's what I mean by that. Okay, make sure the name doesn't exist at uspto.gov and at the state level. Um, Really, if you want to do it the right way, you should probably hire a lawyer to do like an exhaustive check to make sure your business name doesn't exist throughout the entire country. But if you just want to do like a quick and dirty look, uspto.gov is a good place, and then you can check your state for the name as well. You want to see if the .com name is available. If you want to see if a domain name is available, go to a site like GoDaddy or HostGator. There's tons and tons of sites where you can buy domain names. That's just one example. Uh, but could be good to know because you're going to want to own the .com. Now you might not be able to buy it right away. Somebody may already have it. But at some point, if you want to be a multi-million-dollar business, you're probably gonna have to buy it at some point. And so if it's already available, bonus points, because then you can just buy it for like $12 or something rather than spending thousands of dollars to buy it from somebody else. A lot of people can sometimes get really stressed and lack decisiveness in this area of what should I call my business. Listen, it doesn't really matter. Like you can always change the name of your business with a DBA or change the name of your brand later on. Like I see these multi-million dollar internet online guru people that have some name of their company, this brand that they've built. And then I look at the actual legal name of their LLC and it's something completely, totally weird and different. And it's like, that's the name of your company? So at the end of the day, it's not gonna make or break you, right? So don't stress too much about what the official name of your company is, because there's a lot of like weird names of multimillionaire companies, and the honest answer is the official name of your company doesn't show up very often anyway. Again, like if you want to launch a new product and you want to promote the product and build a brand around the product, that product name has nothing to do with the legal entity name that you chose. So again, don't stress out too much about it. Like this is something you don't want to spend several weeks on, maybe spend several hours and then just pick a name and move on. You don't want to spend a lot of time on this stuff. Here are some names of companies and brands and things that I've done just to give you some perspective. Ludus Media LLC. So my first company was the book. If you guys didn't know, I wrote a book called Pirates of Financial Freedom, and I started a publishing company in order to publish it. So at first I thought I would call it like, empowering books or something. But I was like, that would pigeonhole me, right? So I chose media because eventually I got into like a internet TV show, which I'll talk a little bit about. And what if I wanted to do other kinds of, I didn't want to just limit myself to books. So I thought, well, media is really generic. So that's why I expanded that reach. Ludus is a cool word. It is a Latin word that basically means both education and fun together. Is what the word means, and that was perfect because I wanted my book and my media company to focus on things that were educational and entertaining. So ludus was like a perfect word. So one strategy for coming up with a name for your business is go find some Latin word that represents or a word in a different language that is easy for English people to pronounce. You want to have like a foreign word that people, what is that? You want your name to be memorable and easy to pronounce. But go find a Latin word, go find some word that represents the ideals and principles of your business, and maybe you use that as the business name. So that's one uh, idea. Coachieve, obviously you guys know Coachieve. So this was cool because the reason I chose Coachieve is because it combines the word coach and achieve into one word. You see, finding like a domain name, a .com that isn't taken already can be a little tough. That's why you'll find a lot of startups, they'll take a word and then just remove the vowels from it. Or they'll take two words and combine them into one word because that's available. This is basically what I did. I also like the idea of, like, if you look at a lot of startups, they're like kind of short, two-syllable names that are like less than 8 letters a lot of time. And so this kind of fits that category. Uh, and the way I came up with it, this is a strategy you can use. There are tools online where you put in two random words and then it'll combine them into one word. And that's what I did. I spent like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I don't really remember how long it was, but I just put in all these words that represented my business, like empowering, coach, coach, um, success, uh, results, all these words. And, I just was playing around. And eventually I put in coach and achieve, and it spit out Coachieve. I was like, that's amazing. I love that. Because it also looks like co-achieve, meaning you're achieving together with someone, which also represents my business. So whether you look at it in terms of coach and achieve as two separate words combined, meaning bringing the best of both together, that works for the brand. Or if you pronounce it co-achieve, that's not how you pronounce it, but if you did, then that kind of means like you're achieving together with someone else, which is also what I want to help people do. So it was great, and that's how I came up with that name. Biggest Fan Awards. This was an internet TV show that I was the creator and producer for. That's a whole other story that I'm not going to get into today. But yeah, that was the basic idea of the show, is that fans competed to prove they were the biggest fan of something, because at the end of the day, let's say you're the biggest fan of a certain book or a certain celebrity or a certain movie. You claim you're the biggest fan, but there's no really way to prove that you are. Well, that was kind of the point of the show. So it's kind of like a reality, not a reality show, but like a competition show. And people proved that they were the biggest fan by answering trivia questions and open answers. And I had qualified judges judging who was the best contestant, blah, blah, blah. And I just don't remember how I came up with that name. I think I came up with the concept first, and then it just kind of fell into place from there. I think I was looking at the way I came up with the idea was I was writing a book, okay? And you have to pay money to apply to get a book award. So I have an award-winning book, and the way I got that is I paid $50, $100, or whatever it was to submit my book for consideration to these book awards. And I was spending all this money on applying for book awards, and I was like, geez, I wonder if I can create an awards company. And that's kind of where it got me started thinking, like, well, what kind of an award could it be? What would be cool? What's different? What would stand out in the marketplace? And blah, blah, blah. And I think it could be, I just, the amount of work it is to actually produce a TV show is like, wow. And it wasn't getting traction right away. And I thought, you know what, this isn't my purpose in life. I'm just going to move on to another idea. Pirates of Financial Freedom. I remember the exact time I was walking down Fifth Avenue back when I worked at Morgan Stanley. I was walking down the street, and this idea just came to me. And I was like, oh, that's what I should call my book. Because I've been thinking for days, what should I call my book? What should I call my book? And I had all these different ideas. And I liked this because financial freedom's in the title, because that really focuses on what the result is, right? What is the goal? So when you think about coming up with a name for your company, what is the result? Because remember, at the end of the day, people don't want to hire a coach. They don't want to buy a product. They want a result. They want a feeling. They want an achievement. they want to either increase pleasure or decrease pain. And so if you can incorporate the result into your business name, then it'll help with marketing. It'll help you come up with a cool name for your product, for your service, whatever. And then so financial freedom was the goal. So that was in the title. And then pirates made it sound like, wait a second, it's kind of like you do a double take. It's like, what does pirates have to do with financial freedom? And it just kind of was like, well, it's a good thing for curiosity. So that's why I went with that name. And so those are kind of how I came up with those names. And hopefully that gives you some strategies for how you can come up with a name for your own business. Okay, next, the state of incorporation. So obviously you need to pick a state to start your company in. You may have heard that Delaware, Nevada, they can save you a lot of money on your taxes if you incorporate in those states. And that might be true, but for us, we're not a Fortune 500 company. And so you don't need to worry about that right now, in my humble opinion. Again, there's no advice given here. But in general, if you just kind of talk to other people, and what other people give as advice is basically pick the state where you live and do business in. So if whatever state you're living in right now, probably it's not a bad idea to pick that as the state that you incorporate in. Don't incorporate in Delaware if you don't live in Delaware and don't plan on having the majority of your clients in Delaware. Like, there's no point in doing that. Make your first few million first, and then worry about that. You want to ask your accountant if you need to file taxes in states where you and your clients are. As of this recording, the vast majority of states do not charge sales tax for coaching and consulting services or services in general. But some states might, and this is subject to change from year to year. It's good that a lot of states are not charging tax on services, but I wouldn't be surprised if that changes in the future. And so that's why I'm saying just double check with your accountant to see if you need to charge sales tax if you have a service business. All right, business address. And if you don't have a service business and you're selling an actual product, then there's a decent chance you need to charge sales tax for that. So, but again, it depends. Like, in some states, there is no sales tax on food, but other states there are. Other states, there's no tax on clothing, I think. I heard that once. Don't quote me on that. But in other states, there are. Like, why wouldn't they tax clothing? That's kind of, I don't know. So, like I said, if you're selling a product, there's a decent chance you have to charge sales tax, but it depends on the state, et cetera. So talk to an accountant. All right, next, you need a business address for your business. One option is to use your home address. Now, the advantages of this is it's free. You already have a home, and you don't have to pay any additional money when you use your home address as your business. So, that is an option, but I don't think it's the best option for a few reasons. One, privacy and safety. If everybody, like, what if you have an upset customer and they show up at your door? Probably not a good experience. Now, I haven't really heard of that happening, but in my mind, why even take the risk? More importantly, though, is credibility concerns. Like, if you're like, oh, yep, this is the address of my business, and I go to Google Maps and I look it up, and it's like some not very nice looking house in a not very nice neighborhood, and that's the official headquarters of your business, you definitely lost some credibility in my mind there. If that's kind of where you live and I can look it up, and like, if you're using your home as your business address, I know you're probably not that successful. At the end of the day, you're probably not that successful if you're using your home as a business address. The other thing is, when you're sending emails, the law says, the CAN Spam Act says, you have to put your business address with every email. So like me, if I have a email list of over 10,000 people, which I do, and I'm sending out my home address to 10,000 people, not really what I want to do. So that's one. Another, if you have a lease, you need to check to see if it's even allowed to run a business from your home. I remember this episode from The Office where Michael Scott, quit the company and he was running his business from his apartment. He got this letter that said, you can't run a business from the apartment. I mean, it was a funny episode, but it's also true. Like, you could maybe get in trouble with that based on your landlord, et cetera. So you need to check for that. So those are a few reasons why you may not want to use your home address as your business address. You may say, Oh, well, I'll just use a PO box. I'll go to the post office. I'll get a PO box. No problem. Well, you're not allowed to do that either. I don't know why, but that's the rule. You can't have the PO box. You can't have a PO box be your business address. But there's a little way to get around that. Okay, so UPS, maybe the United States Postal Service at some locations, if they're feeling nice, will let you use the physical address of the building. So like the UPS store, they'll let you use that, and then the number 506 or whatever, kind of like an apartment, will be like your PO box. So you're essentially using a PO box as your business address, but because you can't do that, you're just using the physical address of the whatever. It's a way to get around it. So, and apparently it's legal, so that's an option. You can use a virtual office. Now, if you don't know what a virtual office is, this is basically, they're physical locations, they're real companies, and they may have hundreds of companies based out of that one location. Now, obviously, they're not all there physically, because most of the time you don't need an office. You just work from home or the coffee shop or whatever. You don't have to be in an office. But it allows you to use their address, and they can accept your mail, which is great. So there's all benefits to virtual office, and this is the option that I chose after doing research. The first company I signed up with was they're still around. They're called DaVinci, and I was paying $79 a month. I got a really cool office on Park Avenue. It was 200 Park Avenue in the MetLife building, which is attached to Grand Central in New York. Like, I felt fancy. I'd go into this office, and it was a beautiful office. Like, you walk in, it overlooks the city, and I don't know, I felt kind of fancy. So that's why I picked it, and it also had like a nice address, and it worked fine. They had this network of locations all over the world. So if I was traveling somewhere, I could just book a conference room by the hour, and it was fine. But what I found is, every half a year or so, they would raise the price, and they'd raise the price, and they'd raise the price. I finally got up to like $122 uh, a month, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I never use it. Like, all they are basically a mail service for me. I never used their conference rooms. I never rented any office space from them. I wasn't traveling around internationally like I was hoping I would, needing all these offices for important business meetings. Like, I just wasn't using it. And I was like, I think from when they went from 112 to 122, I was like, this enough. I'm gonna bite the bullet and look for another option. And so I found Regis. I did get a good address there too, Park Avenue South. So still not bad. They were charging $39 when I signed up, and again, they have benefits too. Basically similar to DaVinci. They have locations all over the country, and you can rent conference rooms by the hour and rent an office by the day and things like that. They accept my mail, so pretty much the same thing, just a cheaper price. Although, it's been about a year or two, and now they're at $49 a month. So I guess the deal is, like, they get you in a lower price, and they just gradually increase it over time until you get fed up with it and you go replace them. So I guess that's kind of how virtual offices work. I don't know, lesson learned, but still $49 a month. It's the cost of doing business, whatever. It's a tax write-off anyway. So, okay. Another option is a co-working space. Now, co-working spaces and virtual offices have a lot of similarities, but also some differences. Co-working space is really meant to be more like you work there every day kind of a thing. Like, in a co-working space, you would have a dedicated office, whereas a virtual office, you may or may not ever show up. So that's kind of a difference between co-working space and virtual office. The most popular co-working space is WeWork. And, I've been at WeWork. They do a good job. They got, they've gotten some negative press because overvaluation and whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm still a fan. And if you're gonna do a co-working space, just ask them if you can use it as the business address, if they can accept your mail, all that kind of stuff. But keep in mind that this is basically going to be an expense you're going to have forever. For as long as the business exists, you're always going to have to pay it. So you may be like, well, maybe I'll just start at my home address until I get some traction and then switch. That's an option. You would have to actually change. You'd have to file some paperwork with the state and your bank account and all these other people that you gave your address to. You'd have to update it. But I guess that is an option. because once you're locked into one of these things, you pretty much have to pay that monthly for the rest of the life of your business. So just keep that in mind. Okay, legal entities. You need to pick what kind of legal entity you want to have for your business. One is called a sole proprietorship, and you already have a sole proprietorship. Okay, basically, you can start doing business right now legally without having to file any paperwork. You are just operating as a person. Hey, I'm a person, I have a pulse. If that's you, then you naturally have a sole proprietorship. Now, the downside is you have zero legal protection. Okay, so you can start selling your services right now, selling products, services. They just write a check to your personal bank account and you're in business. You're an official business. You're called a sole proprietor, but there's no legal protection. So let's say you screw up and they sue you. Well, guess what? They can go after your house. They can go after your personal bank accounts. They can go after that antique that's worth a few thousand. They can go after anything because it's you. You are the business. There's no separation between you and the business. They can go after you for everything that you're worth. So if you are a millionaire in a high risk business, don't operate as a sole proprietorship because somebody's probably going to sue you. They're like, oh, they're a multimillionaire. They got this big house. I'm just going to sue them because they have money. So don't do that risk if you're a sole proprietorship. Now, if you are in a low risk business, such as coaching or consulting, and you're consulting or coaching on, business, maybe like, business stuff or life coaching or something where you're maybe not very likely to get sued. If you're in health coaching and they get sick, well, then that might be an issue. Or if you give advice to a business and they lose $1 million because it was bad advice, I guess you have risk for that. I mean, there's always risk. But don't let all this stuff to get your first maybe a couple clients. Again, I'm not giving you legal advice here, but for your first couple clients, you probably don't have to worry about all this paperwork and legal entity stuff, and just go get a couple clients and have them pay you some money, and that is an option as well. Like, don't let this stuff turn into procrastination for you to like, I'm not going to start marketing until I have all my paperwork done. No, just go out there, and if you get a client, they pay you some money like to your personal bank account, and then you're in a low risk. It's not going to be the end of the world. Okay. Again, don't let this stuff hang you up from doing what you need to be doing to generate a profit. That's what I'm saying. C Corp. These are like quote unquote the real deal, but they're very complicated. You can have to pay, what's called double taxation, which I'm not going to go into. You also have a lot of annual compliance requirements. You have to file this paperwork. You have to have meetings with boards. You have to do all this stuff. So in general, I don't recommend this for most of my clients because they're not trying to, create a multi-million-dollar business in the first few months. But if you're planning on raising venture capital money, or you're planning on having a lot of investors, or you're planning on raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, then you may need to look at a C Corp because that's what it's built for. But if you're just like a one-person business, or maybe your husband or wife is with you, or you're just kind of casually going about it for now and you're not making a bunch of money and you don't need to raise investors, probably not the best thing to start with. Something you can aspire to grow into. Next is what's called a benefit corp or a B Corp. These are new-ish. And when I started my business, I was aware of them, but they were still kind of new and they hadn't been tested in the courts yet. And I just didn't want to take that risk. But if you want to be a social entrepreneur and your state has some good traction with B Corps, because I don't think every state has them. Maybe they do now. I'm really not sure. But that's, again, why you should talk to an attorney. But it may be something you want to look into. It's called a B Corp and a C Corp. If you're publicly traded as a company, you have a legal requirement to do what's in the best interest for your shareholders. And the best interest of what's in your best interest of your shareholders is to make them as much money as possible. Pretty much that's it. That's what your legal requirement is. A B Corp is different. yeah, you need to make a profit for your shareholders, but you also need to it balances the purpose aspect. So if your purpose is to save the environment as part of your business, then you're not legally required to only focus on profit. You can also focus on doing good for the environment, and you're legally obligated to do it. And so it's a pretty cool structure. Again, newish. They're newish and still kind of being figured out, but definitely something you might want to look into. Next, a partnership or LLP. Um, you may want to look at this if you have business partners. Now, if you've ever seen one of my trainings, I generally discourage you from having a business partner because they're usually just a total pain. And I've heard lots of horror stories of business partners running away with the money and going to a different country and never hearing from them again, or just like bad things. And if you want to break up, it's worse than a divorce in a lot of cases. You know, you have to break up the partnership and there's a lot of drama. And okay, let's say you have a partner, but they're not doing any of the work, but they still own half the business. What are you going to do? You can't fire them. They own half the company. So a lot of just partnership stuff that in general, I like freedom and control. And if I have a business partner, I lose freedom and I lose control. So why would I do that? But in some cases, it makes sense to have a partner. And if that's the case, and you think that it's worth that they bring a lot to the table, like the only reason you should have a partner is if they're bringing something to the table that you don't have. They're bringing value. If they're not bringing any value, then why would you have them as a partner? But for whatever reason, if you want a partner, then you may want to consider this kind of legal entity. The LLC. This is the one that is probably appropriate for most people. It's called a limited liability company. Your personal assets are protected from lawsuits as long as you don't pierce the corporate veil, which we're going to talk about later. But in general, if you screw up and you get sued, they can't go after your house. They can't go after your personal bank account. They can't go after your cars, whatever. This is what's known as a pass-through entity, meaning you don't have to file a separate business return for it. You basically do your taxes like normal, and then all the income and expense, the profit, revenue, and expenses just flow through to your personal income tax statement, and you're just going to file Schedule C as kind of a separate form that highlights that the business is a little bit different, and that's kind of how that works. An S corp. So in general, you want to start as an LLC, and then once you get to over $150,000 a year, you want to start looking at an S corp to save you some taxes. But don't worry about an S corp until you get to that point, generally speaking. Next, LegalZoom. So LegalZoom is great. This is the company that I use to start my business. They help with the articles of organization, the bylaws, the permits, and the licenses. They help you get the EIN, which is the employer identification number. And an employer identification number is basically like a social security number for your business. That's basically what it is. They help you register the paperwork with the Secretary of State. They basically walk you through the whole thing. They have a 1-800 number that you can call and ask whatever questions you want. I've had clients use them before. They have a positive experience. Just like a solid, it just makes the process very, very easy. They have again, these prices are subject to change, but as of today, they have $79 for their economy package, or you can do a more premium package for $329 or $349, and these are one-time fees. The basic economy service takes about 30-ish days to get everything done. The premium packages, more about 10-ish days. I think the 349 is 10-ish days. The 329 is like 20-ish days, something like that. I'm not really sure exactly what the premium package includes over the economy package. I know that it includes faster speed, and it comes with a nice presentation binder rather than like a boring manila folder, and they give you some seals and stuff like that. But I think for most people, the economy is probably good enough. One of my most recent clients who used them did do the premium package, and she had a great experience and said that they were very quick, and so she had a good experience with the more premium package. But I think for most people, the economy is probably fine. Now, I don't give legal advice, but what if you have to talk to a lawyer? Well, as you know, lawyers can be very expensive. So LegalZoom offers what they call the Business Advantage Plan. This allows you to speak to a lawyer for $39 a month. You can speak to as many lawyers as you want, different kinds of lawyers too, right? They have all different kinds of lawyers. You can speak to them in half-hour increments as much as you want during a month for only $39 a month. An amazing deal. It's an amazing deal. And I use that service because I had a bunch of questions, and in at a half hour, they cut you off. But if you want to talk to that lawyer again, you just book another call book another half-hour call with the lawyer again. It's great. Now you may be wondering, why on earth would you get access to lawyers for so cheap? And I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure how it works is, let's say you're a lawyer and you need clients. Well, you could spend a ton of money on advertising and marketing and going to networking events and all that stuff. Or you can just join their LegalZoom Business Advantage plan and get calls coming into you. So you help them for free. You give them real legal advice it's not free. They probably get paid for being on this thing, but it's not a lot of money. But what's the chance that you're going to have some of those people you're talking to, you're not going to be able to help them in just a half hour? They would need several hours worth of work. Or what if you had to prepare some documents for them? So basically it's like lead gen for them. So maybe 1 out of 10 people end up hiring them, or maybe it's 1 out of 5, or who knows what the number is. But that's why I think they can do it, why you can get this service for so cheap. Because at some point, if you talk to enough lawyers, you're probably going to hire them to do something, and the lawyer's happy and everything's great. If you need to talk to a lawyer, that could be a good service to sign up for. Now, if you're in Canada, this entire presentation is basically targeted at the US market. Okay, I don't know the Canada market very well. So what I did is I called LegalZoom and asked them, do you work in Canada? And they said they partner with a company called Corporation Center. This is their website. This is their phone number. I've never worked with them, but if LegalZoom endorses them, then I have to assume that they're good. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. And again, everything I'm covering in this presentation is from a US perspective. So I don't know that everything is going to line up the same in Canada. It's probably not, but at least it'll still give you a general overview of some stuff. All right. Ongoing compliance. You want to make sure you are regularly checking LegalZoom's compliance calendar. Okay, they have a calendar there, and you want to make sure you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, because you can't just start your company and then never you're not done. You have annual requirements. So everything is different by state. But let me just give you New York, because that's where I had my company formed. I will give you some of the requirements for New York, just to give you some sort of a perspective. First, you have an annual form that you have to fill out with a $25 fee that's due March 1st every year. You also have a biennial statement. That means you have to fill out a form every 2 years to kind of update your information, make sure that it's on target. That's due March 31st. You can, for the biennial statement, I just did this, so I know, you can basically pay I think the filing fee is like $9, and then you can mail it in yourself, and you have to fill out a form and all this stuff. Or you can basically pay like $74 to LegalZoom, and they'll do all that for you. And I didn't want to deal with any of that stuff. My time's very valuable. So I just paid the money and was like, good, I can cross off my to-do list and move on to the next thing. They made it just very easy. The only thing they needed from me was like my business email address, and they filled out the rest of everything. They sent in the mail, and I don't know what they did, but I didn't have to deal with it, and it was great. Also, if you need to file state sales tax, that's due March 15th. So if you notice a lot of these due dates, you may think like April 15th is the date you need to worry about. Well, a lot of these happen before April 15th, and they're basically all in March. So businesses operate a little bit differently. If you have a good sized business, you probably have to file sales tax quarterly, not annually. But if you have a small business, then they let you do it annually. And so this gives you some kind of perspective on some of the things you have to do every year to keep your business in good standing. Let's talk about the registered agent. Every single business needs a registered agent. This is not optional. So what is it? A registered agent receives important mail. Okay, this is such as notices from the state, or to receive service of process notices in case you get sued. Now, it's possible that you can use your home address as the registered agent, but again, maybe not the best idea. The registered agent needs to be open from 9 to 5 for a lot of states, meaning somebody has to be there to accept mail. Like if you get important mail, someone needs to be there during regular business hours to accept it. Now, let's say something bad happens, you get sued, and you used your home address as the registered agent. But you weren't home, right? You had to run to the grocery store real quick. They knocked on the door. You didn't open. Okay. Then they did the next thing, which is put a notice in the newspaper, which obviously nobody reads. Like there's no way you would see it more than likely. So they're like, listen, I knocked on their door. Nobody answered. I put a notice in the newspaper. Haven't heard anything. You basically lose the lawsuit by default. Now you owe whatever they sued you for. That would suck. Okay. So unless you plan on being home every day, just in case on that once in a decade opportunity that you get an important piece of mail that you actually need to be there for, you probably don't want to use your home address. The other thing is that the address of the registered agent is public information. So again, if I want to look up your registered agent and I see that the address you're using is your home, I know you're not like a legit business, or at least you're not that successful if you're using your home as your own registered agent. Um, so again, it's a credibility concern. And if you live in a nice house, you're more likely to get sued probably. So again, a lot of reasons why you may not want to use your home address for your registered agent. And it might damage your credibility, as I just said. Now, the business itself cannot be the registered agent, unfortunately, because this was my thought. I was like, well, listen, I'm already paying for this virtual office. Why would I pay a separate fee for a registered agent? I'm just going to use the virtual office or my business address as the registered agent. So I filed the paperwork with the state and it bounced back a couple times. And I was like, what's going on here? So I called them. They're like, yeah, you can't do that. I was like, darn. Okay. You also cannot use a P.O. box for the registered agent, even with that street address hack that I told you about before. No go, can't do it. Registered agent services could cost, who knows, anywhere from $49 to $400 a year. I don't know that they're that different. They might be just a commoditized thing where they're all the same. I don't really know. I haven't spent that much time looking into it. I use LegalZoom's registered agent service, and it costs around $390 a year. I'm pretty sure that is way too expensive. But again, you're basically paying for convenience. Like when I signed up with LegalZoom, and did the paperwork, they're like, yeah, you need a registered agent, you just want to use ours? I was like, okay, sure. So $390 a year is probably overpriced, but I just did it for convenience. But when I called the other day, I happened to get lucky and they gave me a deal. They said, listen, if you say yes, we will give you our registered agent service for the next 5 years for $625. I was like, that's a great deal. Why would I pay $390 a year, which is a super annoying expense, when I get 5 years for $625? So maybe you can get lucky and they'll give you a deal too. I don't know. I'm not making any promises. I just felt really happy when I didn't have to, because I was going to look into the different registered agent and like what a pain and have to file paperwork to update the address and all this garbage. So really happy that they gave me that deal. I took it, by the way. Always check your registered agent mail promptly. Now I'm going to tell a story here. It's going to make me look bad, but I think it's a good lesson for you guys. So I get an email saying an important letter from your registered agent. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. How important can it be? I'll check it soon. And I forgot about it. Then I got another email like, got an important letter from your registered agent. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. And by important mail, I was like, they say everything's important. Like anything you get is probably important. I thought it's probably some advertisement or some whatever. And I blew it off again. And then a couple months later, I get another one. It's like, oh, fine. Like I didn't want to bother checking with it. I was like, what is this? Like stupid advertisement or whatever it is. And I had to like go find my username and my password and I dig through all this stuff. And I finally got in, finally logged in. I looked at it and I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, what? Turns out that it was a letter from a collection agency. Now, I've been in a lot of debt before and I was able to make it work. I've never had to deal with a collection agency before. And here I am looking at this collection agency letter. I was like, well, what is going on here? And they're like, you didn't pay some filing fee to the state of New York last year. It was like $9, $30. I don't even know what it was. And we're now, the collection agency that's going to make you pay or whatever. It's like, what is going on here? Why didn't they tell me? Why didn't they tell me that I had to pay it? Well, guess what they did? That's what those previous 2 letters were. So I went back and I was like, what are these other letters? And it was the state of New York saying, hey, you owe us this money. Like, pay us or we're going to send you to the collection agency. They did tell me. So long story short, check your mail. When you get a letter from the registered agent, just like check it. Don't do what I did and like, oh, it's probably nothing. Like it would have said. So anyway, it was all fine. I called the registered agent and I paid the fee and everything's fine now. And luckily, which we'll talk about later, like that doesn't affect my personal credit score. So my personal credit score is fine. Like it didn't, because it's the business side, blah, 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 blah. Bottom line, they actually send important letters there. So check it. The other thing is if you do happen to get sued, you only have 20 or 30 days to respond to the lawsuit, according to some lawyer on YouTube that I was watching. So you don't want to wait around to be like, oh yeah, I'll check that letter next week. No, do it the same day. As soon as the registered agent says like, you got a piece of mail, there's a good chance that it's important and you better check it right away. Okay, there's my registered agent story. All right, we're going to shift gears here. And we're going to talk about some activities that are low value and high stress. These are the kinds of things that first-time entrepreneurs spend a lot of time on. I call them time suckers. A website, getting an office, getting the perfect business cards and stationery ready, getting some fancy business phone number, designing your logo. Branding probably goes in that same category. Don't waste a bunch of time and money on this stuff. You could easily spend 6 months and several $1,000s going through that list of things that I just said, and you don't need to do it. You just don't need to do it. It's not going to move the needle. It's not going to make you any more money in general. So again, the objective here, let's get through these things as quickly as possible and move on to the activities that'll actually make you money. I don't want you to spend $5,000 or $10,000 designing this great website when you're a new business, you don't even know who your target market is yet. Like there's no point in spending all this money when you don't even know what your brand is. You don't even know who you serve. You're still refining your message. Like, don't waste all that time and money on this stuff. Yeah, don't use these things as an excuse to procrastinate because it's very easy to do that. All right, website. You don't need a fancy website to make 6 figures. You don't even need one to make 7 figures. Right? I remember hiring this coach. He was doing over 10 million a year. And he was saying the same thing, like, don't worry about a website, blah, blah, blah. He was making over $1 million a year in revenue with a crappy website before he even bothered to update it. Now, that's because he wasn't sending people to his website. He was sending people to the webinar, and the webinar looked good, obviously. But even my website right now, like, it's not even that nice. And it doesn't matter. Like, I'm still able to be successful. Don't spend a lot of time. Worry about making 6 figures first, and then you can worry about improving your website. You don't even need a website at all to get your first few customers and clients. So again, don't let this be a hang up for you. Go get customers and clients. That should be the focus, not making a nice website. Now, as far as like how to do the website, I'm going to tell you what I personally do. I have a WordPress site. My hosting service is HostGator, and I use OptimizePress to design my web pages in general. I wouldn't recommend this for most people. Like, the idea of WordPress is cool because it's like, oh, it's free. Oh, WordPress is free. I'll just do that. And then I'll pay $4 or $8 a month to HostGator to host the site. But, WordPress is free. WordPress is free. That's what everybody says. It's not free. I mean, it is free, but what I found out is that in order for it to actually do anything, you have to buy all these plugins. And these plugins are so annoying. I've got to pay like $80 a year for this, and I got to pay this money for that. And then they charge a service fee. And then like whenever you update the plugin, it breaks the entire site. And now I got to figure out like, why did my site break? Because I did a simple update on this stupid plugin. So if you don't want to deal with any of that stuff, unless you're tech savvy, then listen, it's good, right? I mean, I do like it because I have all these nice plugins now and I know what I need to do, and I can build my funnels myself, and I can do my sales pages and they look nice and all this kind of stuff. So there is an advantage, okay? I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying get ready for a lot of headaches and unexpected expenses when you got to buy all these plugin things. That's what I do. For most people, though, you'll probably want to use one of these off the shelf, made for beginners, easy user interface, no updating of plugins required. Everything's handled for you, like a Wix or a Squarespace, or if you're going to do an e commerce store, Shopify. I mean, there's dozens of these companies out there. At the end of the day, I mean, you could easily spend, and I probably did spend, I spent so much, I spent weeks probably researching, like, oh, should I do Shopify or what should I do? Who's the best um, hosting service. By the way, if you want to use WordPress, WP Engine is probably the best hosting service, but they're expensive, and you don't need them. Like I when I was first, as a first-time entrepreneur, I did all these premium things. I signed up for all these services I didn't need. At the end of the day, you're not probably going to get that much traffic to your website to need a premium thing. You just need like a basic thing, and just for now, save your money, get things done fast, do it the quick and dirty way, just get something done so you can focus on the important things, because these things are not that important. So you could easily spend a couple weeks. Oh, should I do Wix? Should I do Squarespace? Should I do one of these other ones? Let me put together an Excel spreadsheet and look at the 12 pros and cons for all these different things. No, just flip a coin, pick one, make your site, get it done, get the whole thing done in a few days or faster. Okay. Again, this is not a high value activity. Like no one's even coming to your website yet or know that it exists. So don't worry about it. Yeah, just pick one, put up a basic site, and let's keep going. Now I said having a .com is the best. Okay, but you know what? A lot of .coms aren't available. My Co-Chief site, as of this recording, is a .co. Okay, I'll be getting the .com at some point here, but yeah, if the .com's not available, you can look at a .net or a .co. .io is for like sexy startups and apps and Silicon Valley stuff. Not appropriate for most of you, I would assume. But if it is, like .io is kind of hot as of this recording. But for most of you, it's going to be either .com, and if that's not available, look at a .net or a .co. An office. You probably don't need to rent an office. Okay, you could spend months researching office space. You probably don't need it. Okay, I've taken business meetings at coffee shops. Better yet, go to their office. Okay, people don't want to go to your office anyway. They probably want you to come to them. And although there are some power dynamics and some mindset things and sales strategies that maybe you want them to come to you and stuff we're not going to get into today. In general, it's not that big of a deal. If you go to their office, it's fine. I've had business meetings over lunch, over drinks, and at my co-working space, which I'll talk about in a bit. So you don't necessarily need to rent like a traditional office. But you will want a dedicated place to work outside of your home. The library, for instance. What I've found sometimes, now I've gotten a lot better and I have better discipline than I used to. But when you work from home, it's so easy to get distracted and say like, oh, let me go get a snack. Oh, I need to just throw in a quick load of laundry. Oh, let me just watch a quick TV show. Oh, I need to go wipe the counter off. Oh, somebody's visiting. Oh, and then if you're living with people, like a roommate or kids or a spouse, or they can interrupt you, and then like, good luck, you're not getting anything done. So it's good to get out of the house to do work in general. And you want to have a dedicated space. Like you don't want to be hopping around for like, oh, where should I go to work today? No, I know exactly where I'm going to go do work today. I sit at the same chair every day at the same time. That's my routine. You don't have to think about it. Okay. And so libraries are good for that. Coffee shops, not my favorite, but that's an option. Some people like them. In apartments I've lived in, they have nice lounges. They're great. No one's ever using them, it seems. They're beautiful spaces with nice views, and you just work from the lounge. So maybe you have some sort of a common area in your building, or maybe you have a home basement. So This is something I've done before, like usually the main level of the house and the upstairs, a lot of chaos going on, a lot of distractions. But in the basement, it's usually like cold and dark and, people leave you alone, and set up a desk down there. You want a dedicated space that you go to every day. That's why I was able to be so productive in New York. I worked at the kitchen table. My roommate was never there. I worked at the kitchen table every day at the same time. That was my spot. Okay. And it worked out great. I was able to concentrate and all that kind of stuff because that apartment didn't have a lot going on. It was a small apartment in the West Village, and it worked fine. So if your working space you're always getting interrupted, get out of the house. Get out of the house, go to one of these kinds of places. Let's talk about a co-working space. Co-working spaces can be great. Co-working space is basically kind of like a virtual office, but you actually go there on a regular basis usually. And as I said, WeWork is probably the most famous co-working space. So what I did is I went on their website, pulled up some prices. These prices are obviously subject to change. They might be completely different by the time you're watching this video, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I did want to give you kind of an overview of some of the different options. So WeWork in New York probably has over 30 different locations, and that's great. You pick the one that's closest to you. They have locations all over the country. They're in most major cities, and they have locations all over the world if you ever want to travel. So they're big. The most basic membership is called the We membership. It's at $45 a month. You basically get 2 credits a month. So you can go there 2 days for the month, and you just work in their common area 2 days a month. And if you want to do any more than 2 days, then you need to pay $50 a day. Next is the Hot Desk membership. Again, this is their common area. So you don't have an assigned seat or anything, but you can go there, I think, every day, or at least every business day. And you go there as much as you want. And in New York, the prices range anywhere from $320 to $760 a month. Pretty big range. The 320 is more like in Queens. Those prices are cheaper. 760 is more like prime Manhattan real estate. So that's why there's such a range there, but it'll give you an idea. Dedicated desk. Let's say you want to go to the next level. You want a dedicated desk. That's yours. Again, around 470 to 890, depending on where in New York City that you are. For those of you that don't know, New York City has 5 boroughs. There's Manhattan, there's Brooklyn, there's Queens, there's Staten Island, and then there's the Bronx. And so New York City is actually those 5 places together, and it kind of depends where you are in the city. Let's say you want a private office. Well, this ranges anywhere from $740 to over $2,000. But that way you've got a private office, you can shut the door, and it's pretty nice. Now let's look at a co-working space in Omaha, because I've spent time in New York and Omaha and lots of other cities. Populous is pretty much the only co-working space in Omaha. I mean, there might be a couple others, but this is really like the most WeWork-ish place. There's no WeWork in Omaha, but Populous is about as close as you get. So here are their prices. They have a virtual office, which is $75 a month. Kind of talked about that, what that virtual office is. What that gets you, they will accept your mail. You can go into that co-working space, meaning you don't have a dedicated desk. You just work at the common tables once per week. You get 2 hours a week for a conference room. You get beverages. I mean, WeWork has beverages too. Like, coffee, soda. Populous has beer. WeWork doesn't have beer anymore, at least as of today. And then Populous also has a fitness center. So, for $75 a month, you can use it as your business address. They can accept your mail. You get some other benefits. If you want to do co-working, this is, again, co-working for them is kind of like the hot desk for WeWork. Basically, you can go there every day, and you don't have a dedicated desk, but you can use the common areas. Their dedicated desk is $325 a month, and their private office, which fits 1 or 2 people, is around $825 a month. And then WeWork and Populous both have bigger offices too. So if you have a team of 5 or more, they can accommodate that as well. So co-working spaces are great because you've got a space to go to outside of your house. There's also the community aspect, which is why WeWork became so popular. They really focused on the community, where you've got like-minded people. You go there, you turn off your cell phone, and you're just working away. You're not getting distracted. And then if you want, you can go talk to other business owners around there to kind of collaborate and provide support and maybe even get a business deal done. So those are co-working spaces, and I encourage you, if you can afford it, to check them out. Let's talk about business cards. A lot of first-time entrepreneurs are like, oh, I got to have a business card, and I can't do anything until I have a business card. Let me tell you, you don't even need a business card. I ran out of business cards years ago, and I never reordered them. I literally, if you were to ask me, Joey, do you have a business card? Well, I'll tell you what I'll say, but no, I really don't have any business cards. I ran out of them, and I was going through them so fast. I kept ordering business cards because I was going to all these networking events. Every one of my business card, and guess what? That didn't really result in much. Because here's the thing: you don't want them to have your contact information. You want to get their contact information. Okay, if you give out 10 business cards and say, let's say you went to an amazing networking event. Most networking events are not amazing, but let's say you went to an amazing one and you gave out your card to 10 people and you wanted to hear from all 10 of them. Like if you heard from 2 of them, I'd be impressed, because people just don't, like, you don't want to give them your information and hope they contact you. And now you're like waiting by the phone kind of thing. That would be horrible. You want to get their contact information. So if someone asks me for my card, which happens, right? I say, no, I ran out, but do you have one? So now I'm getting their contact information, which is what I want if I want to follow up with them. And if they're like, well, no, I don't have one either, then I'm like, oh, well, let me send you a quick email. Let me get your email. And then I just pull up my phone. I just, there, type in your email, and I'll send them a quick, like, hey, good meeting you. And now I have their contact information, or I'll add them on LinkedIn or whatever. The other advantage is sometimes you meet people at a networking event that you don't want to stay in contact with, and you don't want them to have your information because you don't want to see them again. And so if they don't have your business card, then you don't have to worry. And if you have their business card, then you don't need to like reach out to them or anything like that, which is also nice. I mean, that doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does. But if you're like, but Joey, I really want a business card. I don't feel like a real business owner unless I have a business card. Okay, fine, go get a business card. Just don't spend too much time on it. Look at Vistaprint or Moo. Those are 2 popular, affordable places to get business cards. Or you can design your own business card and print them on your own computer. You can go to Office Depot or whatever is in business anymore, to get these kind of pre-perforated cards you stick in your printer. And yeah, they're actually pretty nice. The technology has improved since the last time I tried them, like 5 years ago. And you basically just fold them. So you print them on your own computer, you fold them, and the edges are actually pretty smooth. And I thought they were pretty good. So that's another option. And Canva is a great tool for just designing stuff in general. So if you need to design a flyer or design all kinds of stuff, they just have really nice designs. For office stationery, I created my own in Word, and I'll show you. If you're going to do your own stationery on your own printer, make sure you have nice paper. I prefer linen paper, somewhat thick, like nice watermarked linen paper is what I prefer. Don't use the cheap printer paper for business. Like, invest a few extra dollars and get some nice paper. This is what my letterhead looks like. So what you'll see is I just put my logo at the top. I added my business phone number, my business address, the website, and then at the bottom I put my name and title, my email, and my business phone number. So that's it. Feel free to steal that template if you want. This is my business card, which I ran out of and I don't use anymore. Yeah, it's nice. Has Ludus Media, which is the name of my legal company. I don't even have Co-Chief business cards because I said I don't even use them. Then I had the business address on there. That's some old contact information, but it'll give you an idea of the design anyway. And I used Vistaprint, and they actually have metallic printing. So when you looked at this card, it actually glimmered gold, which was really cool. I did like that. Let's talk about your title. What should you call yourself? Please do not call yourself any of the following: CEO, managing director, chairman. Like if you're a one-person company and you call yourself a CEO, CEO stands for Chief Executive Officer, meaning you're chief over other executive officers in your company. Don't call yourself a CEO if you're a one-person company. Like, wait until you actually can deserve that title. Chairman, like chairman is like chairman of the board. You probably don't have a board, so you're not a chairman of anything. Basically, I think the title of founder or president, I call myself president, is just fine. Okay, don't try to use these fancy titles because people are just going to roll their eyes, or at least I would. Okay, let's talk about a business phone number. You don't need one, necessarily, at least not right away. Just, you have your personal cell phone number, and that's probably fine to get started. Plus, it'll be like when you give someone your personal cell, it's doesn't seem like a business transaction. It seems like an actual friendship, which is what you want to do anyway when you're starting out developing relationships with people. Uh, Now, for my business phone number, I use a service called Grasshopper. I pay 26 a month for it. It has the tree call structure, so it's like press one for this and press two for that, and I guess that's cool. There's an app that I have on my phone that I can check voicemails. I was able to get an 866 number, like 1-800 number, which gives my business credibility. So it's a fine service, but like honestly, no one almost ever calls me. And when I do get an occasional call, it's usually somebody trying to sell me some service or trying to sell me something. And if I could, I would just now I've just used a Google Voice number because I've been paying $26 a month. I think it started at 20 or 19, and now they've over the years gradually raised the price, which is apparently is what they do. Um, I've been paying that 20 some dollars a month for years, and I really don't even feel the benefit from it. So what you could do, listen, there's other services besides Grasshopper out there, but really you can get a Google Voice number for free generally, at least as of this recording. Just use that as your business number and save yourself a bunch of money. Well, not a bunch of money, but 26 bucks a month, over a decade, that's going to add up. Let's talk about your logo. You don't even need a logo to make your first six figures. Okay. People are like, oh, I can't even get started in my business until I have business cards and a logo and an office and all this garbage. They waste 6 months not selling, trying to perfect this stuff, getting their website right, all this garbage. You don't need any of it. Again, just go out and make money, get customers, get clients. That's what you should be focused on, not this stuff. I designed my Coachieve logo that you see in PowerPoint. People are like, oh, you need to hire a designer. Oh, you need to, you can't do anything in PowerPoint. You need Adobe Photoshop and all this stuff. No, PowerPoint's great. I've done a lot of design work. I've designed flyers. I've designed logos. I've done graphic stuff in PowerPoint, and it's fine. When it comes to your logo, simpler is better, right? When you look at famous companies, their logos at the end of the day are just basically text, probably with an interesting font and not even that. Maybe they have some color in it, and maybe they throw in a basic shape or two. Okay, if you don't believe me, let's look at these things. Amazon, just text with a little, curved arrow underneath it. Not exactly fancy, okay? And that arrow is supposed to represent a smiley face. FedEx, no graphic at all, just like a colored, it's just text with two different colors. Now, if you notice, between the E and the X, there's actually an arrow that points forward, which is kind of cool. But other than that, it's literally 5 letters and 2 colors. That's the logo. You look at the original Apple logo, it's just an apple with a little bite out of it with a couple different colors on it. Coca-Cola, at the end of the day, it's just fancy text. They put a circle around it and a squiggly line underneath it. It's just text with a nice font. Look at Google. They don't even have any graphics at all. It's just 6 letters and however many colors that is. These are super basic. MasterCard is 2 circles that overlap. Microsoft is pretty fancy. They actually picked 4 squares of 4 different colors. So we're really fancy now. And look at Uber. They didn't even they literally put white text on a black background, and WeWork put black text on a white background. These are all multi-billion-dollar companies. If their logos can be super simple, so can yours. Let's not stress out about a logo. And guess what? You can always change it in the future anyway. But if you want to hire a designer, you can spend hundreds of dollars on a logo. But Fiverr is probably good enough for you. Basically, what I would do is I would hire multiple people for about $5-ish a piece. I mean, they've gotten more expensive over the years. Maybe it's $20 now, or who knows. But Fiverr originally was you could get everything for $5. But apparently they want to make more money, so they let people charge more. But anyway, hire a bunch of people, get multiple ideas, pick your favorite one, and call it done and move on. That's what I would do if you want a logo. Hire a cheap designer on Fiverr, get a bunch of different ideas, pick your favorite, let's go. Again, you can always redesign the logo better. If you want to spend thousands of dollars on a logo in the future, great, but let's make tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars first before you go waste a bunch of money on a logo. So I thought this could be kind of fun. I'll take you through the evolution of the Coachieve logo. So I did exactly what I'm telling you to do. I told people what my company was about and design a logo for me. And I just left it really open and vague because I wanted to see what people came back with. Here's a bunch of different options. I didn't really love any of them, so I didn't want to just pick one and move on. I was like, well, fine, I'll just do it myself. It always seems that I have to do that sometimes. But yeah, so, it gave me some ideas. And then I made all these. These are all in PowerPoint. So these are all in PowerPoint, and you can see different things. Coach and achieve. I really wanted to try to point out that these were, two different words. And so you'll see that with the two circles, like coach is circled and achieve is circled with the overlap. The red, purple, blue one I thought was cool because there was red, there was blue, and then you combine them together and it's purple. But I didn't like that logo as much, but I like the idea. So anyway, I did all these in PowerPoint, and then I ended up picking these. So the one on the right is the one that you've seen before. The one on the left is kind of, if it's called a favicon. So if you go to my website, coachieve.co, and you look in the top left corner, there's a little logo there. It's called a favicon. And I couldn't, you don't have room to put the whole Coachieve logo there. And so I just made a short little thing for when I need it. Here are some other logos of various things that I've done. So let's look at Pirates of Financial Freedom first. This one was cool. This one and Ludus Media, I did not design myself. I actually hired somebody to do them. And yeah, I really like that pirate logo because the whole idea was read my book and learn the path to financial freedom. And so northeast, southwest, it had a compass theme. So meaning the book was going to give you direction. And then south, I made a dollar sign because you want to get more money. So I was really happy with that kind of idea. And then you'll see the other one, Ludus Media. So the logo on the left there, I don't know if you noticed this, but I like the color gold. All these are gold because I like gold. And you can do the same thing. If you like a certain color, pick that color. Why did you pick that color? Because I like it. I mean, this is as good a reason as any. So you want to be proud of, your company and your branding and your colors and stuff. So just pick what you like. So this logo was interesting because if you see, it's actually two E's. You'll see the E on the left and the E on the right. Those stand for educational and entertaining. That's why I picked those two kind of slanted E's. I also like the fact that there was a cross in there. So that's the logo I picked. And then I added the logo in between Ludus Media, and then I actually put educational and entertaining myself on that logo, and then I also had a black one because sometimes you need a black background. At least that's what I thought at the time. I don't know if you really even need one, but I had both the white and the black. Biggest fan awards, these two I designed in PowerPoint, and yeah, that's what they are. I mean, the one on the left is basically gold text with a circle around it. Nothing fancy. Okay, professional headshot. So this one might actually be worth the money. Okay, a professional headshot and a little photo shoot shows that you are taking your business seriously. It's very easy to tell an amateur from a successful business person, successful influencer based on the quality of their photos. So spending a few $100 on a nice headshot, having a couple nice photos probably makes sense because you can use them for years to come. But spending thousands of dollars probably doesn't make a lot of sense at this point. But I think a few $100, get a nice photo, get a few nice photos, could be a good investment. All right. So those are kind of the main things that a lot of Like a lot of first-time entrepreneurs focus on that list we just went through in terms of what's most important. Those things are not important at all. Uh, Getting your business plan right, narrowing down your target market, figuring out your value proposition, figuring out your marketing strategy, improving your sales skills. Like those are the things that are going to make you money, not any of that other stuff that we just went over. Well, at least not when you're getting started. Okay, when it comes time to scale and make millions of dollars, then yeah, obviously your website's important and all the other stuff. But for now, let's just try to make let's just try to make your first few $1,000s. Let's talk about bank accounts. Once you get your employer identification number, you're going to open a business bank account because you can't do it until you have that. And if you use LegalZoom, if you get the basic package, it might take a month or so until you get one. You probably want to get a business credit card. You want to make sure you keep your business income and expenses separate from your personal income and expenses. This is called, if by not doing this, you basically don't want to pierce the corporate veil. And what that means, let's say you use your personal credit card for a business expense, and you use a business expense, or you use your business credit, you use your business debit card for a personal expense. You've kind of pierced the corporate veil, and now you might not have that limited liability protection anymore, because they're going to be like, listen, this isn't a separate business. He's using the business money for his personal trips, and it's a slush fund, and that's not a separate business. It's just his money. So we're going to go after his personal assets too, because that's what he treats his business like. That's what a lawyer could argue, and a judge might agree. Who knows? I'm not an expert in that area, but bottom line is keep the bank accounts separate. So I'm going to go through the bank accounts that I have or have had in the past, or how I got set up. Not saying that you should do the same thing. I'm not saying that you're going to get the same credit limits or interest rates. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, here's what I've got. So first, I have a Wells Fargo business checking and savings account. Why did I pick Wells Fargo? Because I already had my personal accounts there. And why did I have my personal accounts there? Because that's where my parents banked, and that's where I got set up. Okay. There was no exhaustive analysis here. I was just, listen, banks are banks. At the end of the day, they hold money. Is there a better bank than Wells Fargo for your startup now, especially in the past several years? That, probably, but again, not going to make a huge difference. You shouldn't be focused on spending 3 weeks investigating all the different banks. Just use your current bank, or pick a bank, or pick Wells Fargo, or let's just pick one and move on. It's not going to move the needle that much. You can reevaluate this stuff once you're making 6 and 7 figures. Then sure, go do all the investigating you want. But for now, let's just get things going. I have a debit card linked to my business checking account. I got a Wells Fargo business line of credit for $5,000. I got a 10.75% interest rate on that. But your business lines of credit sometimes expire, and you'll just want to be aware of that, just so you know. Now, I have a Wells Fargo business credit card. It's got a $7,500 credit limit on it, and that's a 14.74% interest rate. I then got a Chase Inc. business credit card that's got a $17,000 credit limit, and 15% interest rate. And that's pretty much all the bank accounts that I have. So just to give you some perspective, I don't know what you need or want or whatever. That's what I got. But you're also going to want some other stuff. You're going to want to probably get a PayPal account, and you want to tie it to your business bank account. So you want to if you have a personal bank account, if you have a personal PayPal account, you want to get a business PayPal account as well. PayPal is good. It allows you to send invoices. So you can send an email invoice to someone so they can pay you. You can set up recurring payments. All right. So let's say you want to offer a recurring payment or a payment plan. So someone can't afford your upfront cost. So you're going to do all right, rather than $3,000 one time, you're going to charge them $1,500 over 3 months. Well, you don't want to keep asking them for their credit card information month after month after month. You just want to make it automatic, and PayPal can do that. People can pay online with their credit card. with PayPal without needing a PayPal account, right? So some people are like, well, I don't want to use PayPal account for my business because the person would then need a PayPal account and everyone doesn't have PayPal account. No, that's not true. You can use your credit card when paying with PayPal. Okay. Now, some people may say, what about Venmo? Well, I looked into Venmo, and if you're charging thousands of dollars for your service, like you're doing like a premium package kind of thing, um, it just like the limits were too low. It was too much of a pain to set up a business, like personal. Sure, like okay, send $20 to a friend, send a couple $100 to a friend. Yeah, sure, it's great for that. But to charge, $5,000 coaching packages through a business, linking your business bank account, it just didn't work very well. Like the limits were too small and all this kind of stuff. And so I don't have a Venmo for business, though I do have one for personal. Square is great. This allows you to take credit cards over the phone. So some people are like, well, how do you take a credit card over the phone? I use Square. Square has an app on my iPad, and I pull it up and I put in the dollar amount that I want to charge. You can charge $5,000, $10,000, a lot of money, and you ask for the credit card over the phone. Okay, what's your credit card information? And you type it into the app. You hit go, and then boom. Now, a couple things to be aware of. When you take credit cards over the phone, you need 4 pieces of information. You need all 4, otherwise it's not going to work. So one, you need their credit card number, obviously, but then you also need the billing zip code. You also need the CVC code on the back, and you need the expiration date. Okay, you need all 4, otherwise you're not going to get any money. Another thing, sometimes you'll run a transaction and it'll say it was declined. Okay, the most likely possibilities, well, there's a few. One, you type the number in wrong, so run it again and see if it works the second time. Sometimes you just typed it in wrong and it's fine. Next, maybe they said they had money or they had enough credit and they didn't, and that's why it was declined. But a lot of times the reason it gets declined is because of fraud protection, right? Most people don't spend thousands of dollars with a new thing every day. And so more than likely it's probably fraud protection. So just have them call the bank account or have them call their credit card and person and say, yep, it's fine. Let it run through. You run it again, it should be fine. Some banks have gotten smart and they send a text right away, say, hey, we declined this thing. Like, do you actually want to do it? They just respond back via text saying like, yes, allow it. And then you run it again and it works. So don't be freaked out if the thing doesn't work. That's kind of how that works. Square is also good because they have a reader. It's a little plastic thing that attaches to your phone, and you can like, let's say you're in person, you swipe the credit card right there into the reader, and it's really slick. I would sell my books at fairs or whatever those things were, and I'd sell a bunch of books, and the other vendors at the time, like this was kind of cutting edge a few years ago. Yeah, they were like, I can't take a credit card. I can only take cash. And I was like, I can take credit card. Just swipe, swipe, swipe. And it worked really great. And then you can just carry that little reader around in your pocket or your purse and always have it in case you ever need it. Actually, I don't do that. You usually know in advance if you're going to need the reader and then you grab it. Otherwise, you don't need it. The other cool thing about Square is you can apply for their Square installment program. So that's really great. So let's say that you have a package that you're going to charge $5,000 for, but the person wants to spread out the payments. Makes sense, right? So with Square installments, like just for hypothetical example, let's say you charge $5,000, they will the prospect will apply through Square. So all the information goes right to Square. You don't get to see anything. And if they get approved, then that $5,000 they could pay over 12 months, and it brings it down to like $450 a month. And then they get it. So what's nice is you get your money up front. So you get the $5,000, and then it's Square. Square is taking the credit risk. Because let's say you offer that deal. Okay, I'll charge you $500 a month over 12 months. And what happens if they stop paying you after 3 months? Now you have to play bill collector, and that sucks. I've had to do that before, and I don't want to do it. Let's say that they stop paying Square back after 3 months. Well, it's Square's problem. I got my money, and they're not going to take it back from me because that's why they charge interest rates to compensate them for that risk. So Square Installments is great if you can get approved for it. And then obviously the Square has the right to reject clients or prospects as well. And I've had that happen multiple times. So if their credit score isn't good enough or their income isn't good enough or whatever, like I don't know what Square does to vet people, but if they don't pass the vetting process, then they don't get approved. And that's unfortunate, but that happens too. Let's say you're running some sort of online something. Stripe is really the best for that. They make it super easy. You know, they're like when I first got started doing this stuff, it was really hard to take money to, you know, you had to get a special approval with like a merchant account and all this garbage. Stripe makes it super easy now. So when I'm like, if you go to my website and buy a book, Stripe is processing those credit card transactions. I also allow people to pay for my coaching services via my website. And when people do that, Stripe processes that transaction, and Stripe is great. But that's it. You know, that's if you want to make 6 or 7 figures, that's all the tools you need. Let's talk about business loans. If you want to get a business loan, you need to get approved for one. Since your business has pretty much, if you're a new entrepreneur, like if you have no profit, basically any business loan you're going to get is going to need a personal guarantee. And you're like, but wait a second, I don't want to give a personal guarantee. I want the business to do it on its own, but no bank is like, if your business doesn't make any profit, there's no way they're not going to make you sign a personal guarantee unless something else is going on. So if you want a business loan, what they're going to do is pretty much look at your personal credit and your personal income. So it's basically like getting any other loan. It's just you're getting this loan in the name of your business. So something you may want to look into if you don't have a great credit score, if you need more money or you want a lower interest rate or things like that, is an SBA loan. That's a Small Business Administration loan. And basically the SBA takes the majority of the risk. So let's say the bank rejects you, they may approve you if you get an SBA loan because they know that the SBA, like if you default on the loan, they're going to get most of their money back from the SBA. And so they can be a little bit more lenient on things. So you may want to ask about an SBA loan. Here's the thing. Do not quit your job. If you're currently employed and doing the side hustle thing, don't quit your job until you have all the credit that you want. Because banks in general don't like entrepreneurs, and they especially don't like entrepreneurs that don't have much income to show. You see, here's the thing. As an entrepreneur, you want your income to be minimized. You want to run through as many expenses as you can to lower your income so your taxes are low. But what's a bank want? They want your income to be really high. So you could be there's multimillionaires that, according to their tax returns, don't make much income because they don't want to pay out that income to themselves and pay tax on it. They let the business keep it, and they don't get approved for loans because the bank is like, well, you don't have much income. And the multimillionaire is like, I made over $1 million last year. What do you mean I don't have any income? Like, I'm making all this money. I just don't want to pay myself all that money and pay all that income for it. And the banks just don't always get that. So bottom line, you're not going to get approved for any kind of credit if you don't have any income coming in. And the best kind of income the banks like is a paycheck. So don't quit your job until you get all the credit that you want, because good luck getting approved after you quit your job. So let's talk about business credit for a little bit. Let's say you max out your business credit cards and you miss some payments on your business accounts. That shouldn't affect your personal credit score, which is great. Now, I've never, as far as I can remember, I've never missed any payments on my business credit, so I'm not talking from personal experience. But in case that happens, your business, like my business accounts, my business credit card, my business loans, etc., don't show up on my personal credit score report or on my personal credit report because they're separate, which is great. Let's say you have to file for bankruptcy for your business, which again, I've never had to do, thank goodness. I've never had to file bankruptcy at all, not personal side or business side, just making sure that's clear. Did come close though. I did come close, but I was able to avoid it. So that was a good thing. But let's say you had to file for bankruptcy for your business. That shouldn't affect your personal credit, which is good. But if you file for bankruptcy and you gave a personal guarantee on those business loans and you can't pay those business loans back from your personal income, well, now it's going to affect your personal income because you gave the personal guarantee. Right? Hopefully that makes sense. If someone sues your business, they can't go after your home or your personal assets, which is great. That's the beauty of having limited liability. That's why it's called a limited liability company. But your business does have a credit score. So even though you missing a payment or whatever doesn't affect your personal credit score, your business does kind of have a credit score. And this credit score could affect your relationship with potential business partners, potential investors, vendors, and it'll definitely affect how much you have to pay in interest. Like if you have a bad business credit score, you're going to have to pay more in interest. So be sure you pay your bills on time. Be sure you're not maxing out all your business credit, etc. There's basically three main credit bureaus for businesses. There's Dun and Bradstreet, there's Equifax Business and Experian Business. One of the main things is the DUNS number, DUNS. That's run by Dun and Bradstreet. They may create one for you, but you probably have to request one. So look into getting a DUNS number. That way they can start keeping track of your credit lines and if you have any business credit cards, and sometimes you have to report it to them. And the whole thing's just kind of confusing, but just something to be on your radar. Again, not a big deal at this stage of your company. If you're just getting started, I wouldn't even worry about it. Okay, taxes. Let's talk about taxes. If you have an LLC, your business income basically passes through your personal income. So when they refer to your LLC as a pass-through entity, that's what they're talking about. It means that you don't have you're not filing a separate tax thing for your business. All that income just kind of flows through onto your personal income tax statement. You're going to file a Schedule C along with your personal taxes. Now, if you have a job, like a day job, and your business reports a loss, which a lot of times it does, you can kind of use that loss to offset some of your paycheck money. So you can lower your taxes, which is pretty cool. You want to keep track of your cash expenses and income and your donations. So otherwise, you're going to forget about it. When it comes time to taxes, if you don't record your cash transactions, there's a good chance you're going to forget they ever happened. So you want to make sure that you're recording those. When I first got started, again, I signed up for all these services and I did all this stuff, and I was going to make $1 million my first year, so I was prepared for that. And obviously, that didn't happen, and all this kind of thing. So one of the things I signed up for was 1-800-ACCOUNTANT. Fine service, I think. I think I paid like $500 a year. They were supposed to do my taxes for me, and I think they maybe did. I don't really remember much about the experience. I don't remember being a negative experience. I just remember realizing that I didn't need to spend $500 for the service anymore. So now what I do is I use Excel and I use TurboTax Home and Business. TurboTax has different editions. You want the Home and Business one because, well, that's the one you need if you're going to have your own kind of side hustle business thing. With TurboTax, it's a pain. I don't enjoy doing it, but the pain isn't enough for me to switch. And so I take a few days out of the year and just bang it out, and it's not that big of a deal. It saves me some money, cost me some time, but honestly, to switch to the next thing is like eventually the right way to do it. I should set up Quicken and Quicken Books and then get an accountant. That's the right way to do it, quote unquote, right way. That's going to take me several hours to figure out anyway. Like I have to find a good accountant because not all of them are created equal, and just link all these accounts to Quicken, all this kind of stuff. And it's going to take just as much time to do all that as to just like bang out my taxes on my own. So at some point I'll probably switch to that, but right now I just don't bother. But with TurboTax, they walk you through the process. It's pretty straightforward, but it's super annoying because you have to categorize all your expenses into 16 different categories. Oh, I remember the first time I had to do that. I was so annoyed, and I'm still annoyed. It's so annoying. All your expense, every single individual expense, you have to categorize it into different categories. And what's frustrating is like a lot of my expenses don't fit into any of those 16 categories. So I'm like, well, what category am I supposed to put this in? Like your categories are bad. And so you just pick one and you do the best you can. Just make sure that you record which category you put that expense in, because they look at your taxes year after year, and you don't want to be switching categories from year to year for these different expenses. So I just have this long Word document of all the step-by-step things I have to do for my taxes, so I don't have to think about it every year. I would suggest you do the same thing. Create a Word doc, create an Excel doc, and you just want to make it dummy proof. So like, that's what I would do. Now, minimizing taxes, you only pay tax on your profit. So most businesses want to deduct as many expenses as they can to minimize their taxes. So in theory, you could have $1 million of revenue, but also have $1 million of expenses that are eligible, and you don't owe any business taxes. So you could quote unquote make $1 million and not owe any tax on it. Of course, a lot of those expenses are being offset, but that's where we're going to get into a little bit of a gray area. What is a business expense and what is a personal expense? Okay. Deducting business expenses is awesome because it reduces your tax bill, but be careful what you decide to deduct. Some people take it too far. Like they basically run all of their personal expenses as a business expense, and then they get caught by the IRS and they get in trouble. I'm not going to give any advice on this. Talk to an accountant. Some people really push the envelope on this and they get away with it. Other people push the envelope and they get caught. Very much a gray area. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, let's take some action now. We have gone through a lot of information. I hope it was helpful. But now it's time to take action based on this information, because this information on its own is just information. You need to do something with it. So what are the most important things that you need to do based on what I just said? And just as importantly, what are the deadlines to get those things done? So you need to figure out what are the top 5 things you need to do based on what I just said, and what is the deadline to get them done. I'm going to give you 5 minutes here, put 5 minutes on the clock. Put your list together, put a deadline on it. Let's take some action. Go. Okay, that is all I have for today. If you're in the zone and working, keep working. Don't stop just because the timer went off. Get the stuff done, set your goals, set the deadlines, start taking action right away. Go achieve your dreams. And thank you so much for your time.